What's up, Chris?
What's going on, Jay? Happy Tuesday.
It is Tuesday, a great Tuesday too.
Yeah, what makes this Tuesday great, Jay?
Well, it just so happens that my daughter is on her way home from college, gonna
Yeah,
finish her freshman year. So yeah,
that's
so
amazing.
yeah, for sure,
Congratulations to her. Congratulations to
exciting.
her. Right? Right? Congratulations to her and welcome everyone to the Practice Playbook. If you can't read, which is totally reasonable, definitely a possibility, right? If you're just listening to us in the background, I'm Chris. He is Jay, and we're the hosts of your show today.
I hope you can
Today,
read. I hope everybody
uh,
can read. I mean, come on.
Well, no, let's be real here. Like, it's really possible that that Taylor out there, blind Taylor, she could be listening to us today,
That is true.
and she cannot read, and that's completely reasonable. Like, so let's
That is true.
definitely a possibility that we could reach audiences all over the place. Today, we're going to debunk other myths, Jay, like everyone can read, reveal some truths, and show you how using AI or help you to use AI without losing your edge, or most importantly, or potentially most importantly, your license. That's a really good tagline, Jay. I loved it.
Yeah.
I was glad to see that. So today, what we're talking about is AI, what AI really means for tax and tax professionals. So, is AI going to replace you? Not yet, right? Probably. We'll talk about that. Or will someone who knows how to use AI replace you? Now, that's really, really possible. So, we're going to try to cut through that hype, cut through all the conversation points here, and get to the real world uses of AI in tax. The source of the data that we're talking about today is from a Bloomberg tax white paper. And so Jay, I didn't read the whole thing. Have you read the white paper, or do you have some feedback or notes around where you got it or where you found it?
Yeah, so this was like the first time we've actually had two episodes ready back to back because as we were prepping last week's episode, this came. It's like, do we push it up? Now we'll just run it back. So I thought it was really pertinent, coming off of tax season and talking about it, and it hit dead on. I mean, why do we not have more AI in tax, and what's going on there? And I think that, what we just talked about right before we came on here, it's like, AI tends to hallucinate still. So you don't know if it's giving you, the truth or bogus crap. And in
Right.
some cases, that bogus crap is still coming out. Because, when ChatGPT came out, there was an attorney that filed a brief based on a case, and that case was
Yep.
completely wrong. And then I just heard this like last week, which keyed me to this. It happened again. It was a well-known
Mhm.
attorney in a well-known case filed a brief,
Yeah.
and it was wrong, and it was ChatGPT generated. So the
Yeah.
same thing happens with tax and gives all this information. And
Yeah.
if you build your own AI model and you train it and you're doing all this work, I believe it will deliver what you need it to. But using a public model with all this information out there, it's absorbing information from everywhere. It's probably pulling in TikTok videos saying G Wagons for everybody. So you can't trust it, at least not yet. So, and we're going to get into more of this and all
Yeah.
the ins and outs. So,
Yeah, so before we get to all those ins and outs, let's first talk about like why AI even matters in tax. And Jay, you've kind of hit on that already, in that like generative AI, like ChatGPT, like Claude, like Perplexity, it's making waves, right? People are using it for all kinds of different things. I know just this week I used it to help put together a summary for some information for a client. I used it to help me develop a response email to a client. I used it to help me research what kinds of smells my wife might like in a candle as we get closer to Mother's Day, based on some of the candle properties that we have here in the house. I used it to help me build a little workout routine based on a very specific yoga based focus that I want, like a move in yoga that I want to be able to do, and and some of the things that I'd need to be able to do to get there, right? There are so many use cases to generative AI that it's being adopted at a like exceedingly fast rate. And the things that you can do with it become so powerful because rather than a whatever, I don't know what you would call, what would you call the Google model, like your search engine outside of it,
Yeah.
rather than like a search engine which is just like pulling web pages based on hit data. Like the generative AI is using that same hit data, but giving you like interpretive responses, which makes it like significantly more powerful because you can do things like research the entire history of law, where you couldn't do that before, and without some layer of experience, right? You can't know whether it was right or wrong or whatnot, right? And so there are some drawbacks, and we'll talk about those later. But the first thing is that there's just so much information that's been captured by these models that they can give you answers to questions that you used to have to spend a lot of time researching. And that ability and that speed is appealing to everyone, because it helps business owners to be able to focus on the things that they like to do. There's just all kinds of things, and tax is no different, right, Jay?
For sure.
Tax is complicated. There's a lot of stuff out there, a lot of regulation that exists, and a lot of interpretation around that regulation, right? Yeah, it just gets bigger and bigger
Yeah.
every budget bill, like we might have again in another week or two. Um, and and that complexity means that like there are some situations that tax professionals may not have ever seen, and you need some interpretation and you need some extra guidance. Tax is slightly different, right? In that sometimes it's not as black and white. There's a little bit of nuance as well, right? And then on top of that, and maybe most importantly, right, is whereas like this scent of a candle that I get for my wife, like I don't have to be perfect. I just have to be like in the range, in the ballpark. Maybe not a food scent. My wife doesn't really care for food scents, but like most other things, like a clean scent goes a long way. Like that doesn't work in tax, right? You need to be pretty accurate with your results, and as a result, like that means that a cautious adoptive mindset is a reasonable one for a tax professional, and also I think a really smart one. What do you think, Jake?
So you said that tax is not black and white. It actually is. It's completely black and white. Black and white. It is written in the IRS code. And so the difference is the interpretation of that. And that comes down to guidance, professional judgment, etc. And that is the differentiation between tax professional and ChatGPT or LLMs. So,
Right.
we understand that. Now, if there was a tax case and you can search for it, well, ChatGPT can apply it. But,
Right.
looking for something that there was no case law when it comes to tax, well,
Right.
it makes it more difficult. And it's like, okay, how do you weigh it out? And, that it comes down to those factors every time when we're talking about AI.
Yeah. And so I think it's an important place to talk about like what AI can and what it can't do. Some myth busting. Some of this stuff is going to be old hat, like you're going to have heard this before, but some of it may be worth the reminder. An important thing, right, is that the myth. Lots of people think that AI is just going to replace tax professionals. But like Jay was just talking about, like tax professionals need to be able to do interpretation. And so AI will augment and be able to help you to identify like different solutions, right? But it's up to you to still be able to make that final interpretation. So AI is going to augment what you're doing, not replace what you're doing. Importantly, though, like it is important to realize, like some of the skills that you'll need, those will change, right? There will be a requirement to be shifting your skills around how you're doing some of that work, and part of that is because there may be a lot of additional solutions available. Jay, when you think about AI replacing tax professionals and that myth, like, do you have any extra thoughts or anything in particular that you'd want to speak to our audience about today?
You know, it's coming. You know, the day of AI doing returns is coming, but I don't think, you know, and you know, I want to say I wouldn't see it in 5 years, but you know, the pace that we've seen change in this last 12 months is incredible. So
Hmm.
it is possible. Uh, while we were sitting here talking, I'm thinking, all right, what if I took a tax situation and put it in and see what I got and see what it told me was the tax due, or the tax on income based on a tax situation. And you know, it might be worth doing that and just seeing what gets spit out. And
Yeah,
then
sure.
taking varying difficulties of returns and doing it and seeing what it does. Because, I
Right.
mean, ultimately, if you give it specifics of the income, it should be able to mimic it down to the calculations.
Right.
It's because it's excellent at doing math and doing the research. It's just, is it going to hallucinate? Which we'll find out. But,
Yeah.
you know, it's not having to make judgment calls.
Right. Right, and that's the biggest thing, right? Is all of that judgment is what continues to be the responsibility of the tax professional. And so that's why a second myth is that you can just use ChatGPT for tax. You can just use it, just probably send it right in there, right? Here's my data. How much should I pay? Right. That in reality, it's more complicated than that, right? General models, number one, they aren't really all that safe for tax compliance because of some of the things that we've been talking about or alluding to, like hallucination. And then there are these interpretations and these judgments that they need to be made that can change the way that the law is interpreted. And so because of that, like, and because of some of the security features around ChatGPT, there's definitely some downside to to just using the language model itself to do your tax work. That's probably not the right solution.
Yeah.
One other myth, and oh, sorry, go ahead, Jake.
I was just going to say, if you're going to test it, make sure the data is anonymous, because
Yeah,
you don't want it to be able to put a name on it, because it will
right.
remember it.
Yeah,
Now, again, you could build your own internal models and do that, and that should be safe. But still,
yeah, yeah. Be careful out there. That's a common reminder on this show. The final myth, and this is a thing that I know that a lot of people have a little bit of challenge with, right, Jay? And that's if you use automation, you're already using AI. And the truth is, like, that's just not quite true. Automation and generative AI are very different things. And you can listen to our episode around agentic AI. Actually, this is on the e-commerce hour, but agentic AI is coming and is the next layer of automation. But those things are not the same. Automation is very much a do this task based thing, where you're saying when X happens, do Y, right? There's it's very, I don't, clunky is maybe not the right word, but that's true of what automation is doing. It's taking a set of rules and applying the rules.
right? It's rules
Where
based, exactly.
Right, and in generative AI, it is not, like, it's just not the same thing. Generative AI doesn't have the rules in place that same way, because it's generative, right? It's making it up, some kind of response, right? It's not, so it is not the same. Jay, when you think about the differences between automation and AI, there's something else worth highlighting today?
Um, I'm really thinking, when you said agentic AI, I'm thinking, you know, some of the AI agents I've played with, and yeah, I
Hmm.
mean, it combines the rules based, very linear, with
Right,
the generative thinking,
right,
and you know, it just helps. it helps add storylines to it, if you know what I mean. So, you're pulling data through an automation, and then all of a sudden you're using an OpenAI module, and in goes data. You have a prompt, and you're telling it to do something with that data. Well, it's going to come out the other side with something that it made up, and it might be accurate, it might not be, but it was based on rules, but it wasn't built on rules.
Oh, I think that's a really, really good way to frame it. Cut that out, put it on the TikTok. It was generative AI is based on rules. Automation is built on rules, and I think that is a very, very true difference between these two different types of technology. You mentioned that sometimes it'll make it up, and we've alluded to hallucination a whole bunch of times. So let's talk about what hallucination means with respect to tax specifically, right? AI models can confidently, like they very much believe what they're saying, but they can confidently provide you with the wrong answer. And obviously, I mean, I don't think we need much explanation for a set of tax professionals that are watching this show. Obviously, if you are given the wrong information, if you're given the wrong answer, that's extremely dangerous in tax work, because there are all kinds of applications to what that problem may mean, right? The most obvious of which is not having paid enough tax, which can result in penalties, interest, and additional taxes due. That's why it is so important to validate those responses that you're getting from AI tools, to ensure that they are based in accuracy, right? So some of those things you may just know, but if it is a tax case that you've not heard of, like, not just assuming that it's correct is the wrong thing to do, because that can very easily result in the problems that we just described. Jay, when you think about hallucination, what's you have a favorite example outside of the law guy, or do you have some story that you've run across?
Well, I don't know if we talked about my it came off of this show when we talked about the skills you had to have in today's accounting world, and I said I'm going to jump in and do some work. So I took on building out some tools on Azure, and I used ChatGPT and Claude to help me use command line interface to deploy tools. And you put in the command, and Azure lights up error. It's like, okay, copy it, drop it in. And I was doing some of this in parallel on both platforms, and I would get the same answer on both of them. But you'd get the error and said, "Oh yeah, you're right. We were using an old code or something like that." So it knows that it's wrong. It just doesn't know that it's wrong when it's giving it to you the first time. So you could actually test it and say, "Are you 100% correct?" And it will either say yes or wait, let me double check that and come back with another response. Now, I wouldn't trust that. I'd still hope that you have a little knowledge of what you're doing. Now, I knew using code to build something that it's not going to hurt anything if I put the wrong code in. It might not work. It might blow it up, whatever. I can start over. It's not a big deal. But if I'm doing a tax return or a tax plan and I'm delivering that tax plan to a client, I don't want to rely on that without looking at it and understanding. I want to know for sure. So if there's a strategy that's in it, I'm going to double check it and make sure that it is actually correct and accurate, and know that I can 100% be assured I can use that method with my client. I'm not going to just go and say, okay, we're going to do X, Y, and Z and not double check it.
Right, absolutely. And I think, Jay, that's a perfect segue into the next section of what we're going to talk about today, and that's what a good AI tax tool should look like. And there are a variety of different things that a good AI tool should do. The first one is transparency. Jay, you mentioned exactly this. Can you see the source of the answer? And so it is just as simple, I think, I've done this a couple different times with ChatGPT of, hey, I want X, Y, and Z. Can you give me a link to where I can find that thing?
Yeah.
And that allows you the ability to say, you have interpreted X. Let me read the irs.gov webpage site that you're citing here, where I can go prove that out. To that point, a second thing that these AI tools should definitely include is grounding. And what that means is that data authoritative? Is it relevant, right? I could reference an irs.gov site, but if it's about something that's completely like not connected to the tax issue at hand, it's not helping any. And so it is important that not only do you have that connection, but that connection is to authoritative and relevant data.
What is authoritative and relevant data? Is a blog post?
Jay, I will obviously defer to you with respect to this, but my personal expectation is that no, a blog post is not authoritative. A blog post may very much be relevant, right? And it may be someone's interpretation of authoritative data, but a blog post on its own, no matter if it even came from you, Jay, not all that authoritative. Even if it came from our man Danny Werfel from back in the day, I still don't think that would be authoritative. I am hopeful that the tax professionals or wannabe professionals that are out there today are aware of what authoritative guidance is with respect to tax law. Obviously, there are state tax issues that come from state jurisdictions, but the one that we'll reference the most, of course, are directly from the IRS in some way or another.
Yeah,
blog posts, though, definitely not it.
And the IRS website is good information, not authoritative.
Yeah.
Rules and regs. That's what you want.
There you go.
You want those regs.
That's an important
and case law.
Yeah, which I think is that's the interpretation of the authoritative stuff, right? So those things are very, very important pieces of information.
Exactly.
We would be remiss, Jay, on our show if we didn't talk about how important it is for these AI tools to integrate into your existing workflow. And so, of course, it's an important factor to consider that your AI tools, if you're using them, should integrate into your existing workflows. They don't need to be something that you're doing completely out of the way of what you're already working on, and you want them to fit right in with the way that your work is being processed already. And so that is a very important thing to look for in AI tools as well. And then finally, and I think this is also an important one, especially for people who haven't jumped into the AI bandwagon yet, right? So Jay, this one isn't as relevant to you, but it is important to a lot of tax professionals that maybe haven't messed around with AI as much as you haven't created their own agents yet. And that's a low barrier to entry, a low barrier to entry, and a focused use. So you want that AI tool to start simple. You want it to be able to do things that will help you in a very simple way. And so, Jay, I don't know the perfect answer of what that looks like, but when I think about that's some of the things that you've already talked about, right? I need interpretive guidance around X topic. Please, can you give that to me? Right? That is a simple request. And that's a thing that lots of generative AI tools can help you with already, and that's an extremely low barrier to entry because you could go to chat.openai.com and do that right now. Jay, when you think about low barriers to entry or integration into workflow, because I didn't ask you about that, do you have any extra thoughts on those things?
Well, I mean, there's so many different models now, and yes, if you're using Gmail and Chrome, Gemini is built in. If you're using Bing, Copilot is built in. Just try out multiple paths and see what they come up with. Way back when we started this journey, I was using ChatGPT, I was using Perplexity, I was using Claude. I still use all three. I might not be paying for all three, but I'm using them. And, it depends where I'm at. If I'm on my phone and Gemini opens up, I'll use that as well. And, I want to see what the responses are And are they in alignment? Are they all hallucinating? So we don't know, but
Right.
it's worth testing it out and seeing what you're going to get. And if you're new to it, just type in a few words and then copy and paste it into something else and try it out. Just do it.
Yeah. Absolutely. And so just do it is again, Jay, you're just like nailing segues over here. Just do it is a perfect segue into the next thing that we're going to talk about. And Jay, that's practical applications today, right? We talk about this a lot on the show. This is kind of our main goal, our main intention for the listeners and viewers of the show is what can you start doing now? How can you make these changes now? And we've talked about a few of these different things. One of the example that I used as a low barrier to entry is use AI powered search and summarization to speed up research. Like that is, you can do that today. You can ask those things, the same thing that we just talked about, right? You can say, I would like a solution to this particular thing with an authoritative reference, with the link to that reference, and go, right? And you can do that today, and without too much trouble. And then you can then take a point to that reference thing. I still remember, Jay. I think this is the real key takeaway of that particular use of AI, generative AI particularly. There was an entire class in college that I had to take that was tax research. We had an entire paper to write about a tax research topic, about something, and I don't even remember what it was about, and I am never going to. But we had to go through whatever it was. I don't remember if it was I don't know, who are the research tools? I don't even know. Thomson Reuters or something. It was maybe somebody.
Thomson, Bloomberg. Yeah.
Yeah, somebody. Yeah, it was some tool like that, right? Where we had to you had to search it, and you didn't know what to search, and you had to look in 14 different things. And I still remember that I got to the right area, but I missed but not also this in the code section or something in my response, and ended up with losing points because of this, right? Today, you do that whole entire thing that took weeks, right? It was weeks of research, right? You had weeks to write this paper. You do the whole thing by one little prompt of
right.
I this is my particular situation. Can you give me where I need to go looking, right? And can you tell me what, based on that looking, what's the right interpretation here, right? The concept of research is just so different now because the data is so available. And everybody needs to research things that you don't know about, right? It is really important as a tax professional to have the right answer, right? To know what the thing you're interpreting is, right? To understand what that relevant regulation is. And the easiest utilization of AI, in my opinion, is helping you do that. Now, there are other utilizations too. And Jay, you kind of alluded to one of them before, spot checking and cleansing data, right? If you got some gnarly looking file from a client or something like that, you can use AI to help you get it in a form that you need, or help you to generate, like I did, I may have mentioned on the show before, you use, if you know it always comes in the same pattern, you could use Power Query to help you to spit it out in a way that really is what you're looking for and helps you get it into your tax system. And you can use generative AI to help you to understand how to use Power Query. So there are a lot of ways that you can use AI to help you with these types of things. One example that's included here, right, is to generate syntax and formulas with natural language inputs. So if you think about the tax code, there's lots of the lesser amount of this in the total, right? I remember when I was doing my tax return a couple weekends ago, Jay, there was one worksheet where I had to read it 5 times to make sure I was doing the calculation right.
Yeah.
Because I was wait, I need to do the lesser of what and who now, and then also this one. There were 8 inputs or something, and if you had a baby this year, it didn't count, but if it was 2 years ago, it's probably fine. But there was maybe some question marks, limited by the amount of your income. It's just a hot mess, right? But something that helps you to building a formula that helps you to do this is something that I didn't do it, but maybe
right.
I should have actually. I could have used one of these generative AIs to help me to understand exactly what the tax code was asking for, so that I got that right. Right. So Jay, I know that's an area that I think you've had a lot of generating syntax or like those types of things are AI is really powerful at,
Yeah,
and can
for
do
sure.
really well. So I know you've used that in some of your coding, which is not quite the same as interpreting like how to do the math of a tax return, but also important, right? um, then one other use, and I think that this is an interesting one that I hadn't really thought of that much, but you could use those tools to help you to identify use cases or work papers or footnotes of 10Ks where your particular topic is maybe addressed. They can also help you to build compliance calendars so that you can layer out to your clients like here's what you need to know, or here's what you need to be aware of, or even to your internal team. Right, there are lots of different things that you can do, and each of those things is very different. And has a very different output, which I think is part of what's so powerful about the tools that exist right now. Um, Jay, are there other like simple what can you do nows that you've been thinking about or that have been on your mind um, as you've gone through this journey?
I've often thought how I was going to start looking at things a little differently. And at that point, what could I do with AI to help me in the tax world?
Yeah.
And, now that we're in the middle of the summer, we're kind of in our little lull. It might be a good time to do that. And like I said earlier, it's like, all right, it's time to actually, and I know this has been done, that, Jason Stats has put through a tax scenario or two. But,
Mm-hmm.
Looking at things like, is it time to form that S Corp? Building rules around that and building a model for that. And, having things like that instead of watching TikTok and being told, hey, if you made 60K, you need an S Corp. Well, there's more to it than that. It's like, what's the overall structure of my tax? What's my income? Is this a side deal where I'm already making over the FICA limit? Does it really matter if I have self-employment tax? We can't just look at things blanketly like that. Let's build a plan to do that, to really help our clients out like that. So,
Yeah.
and you could do that, like I said, anonymously, not put any identifying information in it. Just put in there, this was the gross from the W-2. This is the Schedule C income, and it'll basically give you that information. That's things that I want to start doing and be able to have that and build things along that. And, if you build your agents, and I can't remember what RAG stands for, but it's a type of database that you build. It's a vector database with information that the agents can actually go through. You could do that with these rules. And these are the rules. It's going to apply the data. It's going to spit out the result. So
Yeah.
that's where we're heading. So it's like, maintain your policies, your procedures, your data. These are the truths that we live by or we work by. And this is your work product, and it's going to use your history, your notes, all of that information to deliver. And that ultimately is what we want to see.
Yeah.
So,
Yep. Absolutely. And so there are definitely lots of things that you can do now, and there are some things that you might be able to do in the near future, and we'll talk about that briefly. But before we do that, let's also talk about a couple things to watch out for. So it is important to be cautious when it comes to these AI tools for a lot of different reasons. And so let's run through just a couple of those real quick before we get out of here today. First and foremost, don't overtrust AI without validation. We've talked about kind of the reasons why you don't want to do that. The obvious one again is not paying the right tax and getting some kind of punitive activity because of it. There are lots of bad things associated with that, and trust me, that's just not a thing that you want to deal with. So don't
Not at all.
overtrust the AI idea without validation. This is the old audit adage of trust but verify. Like, yes, okay, the AI is going to probably get results that maybe make sense, but ask for those links, points to authoritative guidance, and validate that it is actually giving you stuff that's real and not just hallucinating and making it up. This is a critical thing. It is also important to avoid using general AI tools for client-specific advice or tax positions, right? So Jay has talked about that of of anonymizing your data when you're putting it in there, rather than saying my client XYZ wants to do this, and here's a whole bunch of details of their balance sheet or whatnot, right? Like those types of things you want to avoid for a lot of different reasons, but mostly for risk and security based reasons. That information can go lots of different places, and you don't want that there. It is important, especially if your firm is larger or growing, right? It is important to establish internal AI usage policies so that your team knows not to do those things that we've just talked about, and that you and your team are double checking everything that you use with respect to AI, so that you have a good understanding of how those things should be happening. Um, and then one last just general tip, right? Encourage peer review, and then of course always cite your sources, even if they came from the AI, right? Make sure that you're pointing out this is where I got this information from. That peer review helps you to make sure that you're not thinking way outside of the box. Helps you to make sure that another professional has put eyes on the thought process that you're going through, and I think that can be really important. Jay, as you think about cautionary tales or compliance tips, is there anything else that you'd want to highlight today?
Trust but verify. I mean,
Trust
always
but
come back to
verify.
it. Have that
Audit adage.
professional skepticism. And
Also an audit adage. Love
that,
it.
yeah. But I use AI a lot in what I do. I look at it and make sure that what's coming out is correct. Last week, when I did our outline, it actually put the articles, links to all the articles in the output that I did.
Yeah, I remember
I couldn't verify something. I scratched it off that. I said, "Don't do that. Don't say it," because it did not make sense. So,
oh yeah, right.
Yeah, it just didn't make sense, and it's like, okay, we're not going to go there. So just be careful. Make sure you double check, and if it doesn't make sense, go with your gut. Just don't use it.
That's right.
Or verify it and then use it. But
there you go.
Yeah.
Exactly. There are a few final things to think about here, and that's kind of what's coming next. And so, Jay, you kind of alluded to a little bit of this. One of the things that I'm almost certain that you'll see, if you're not seeing it already, is AI assistance within AI assistants, not assistants like little bots, agents, within tax software. Like that's a thing that is there. Those types of AI assistants are everywhere. Every time I look at the news, there's some new one that came out. Like they're just all over the place. So if you don't have some AI assistant embedded in this tax software you're working with, maybe reach out to your rep and ask when it's on the horizon, right? Because they're coming. It's just a matter of time. You'll also see a continued shift from exploratory to embedded AI tools. And so rather than you having to go directly to ChatGPT, there's going to start being more of the embedded right within the framework of what you're doing, and that may be in the form of an assistant that reaches out to your local tax GPT or whatever it may be, or in other different ways. But those AI tools are going to continue to be more and more integrated into your process and your workflows. So continue to look out for that as well. And knowing that is happening highlights the last point that I want to make today. And that is that it is of the utmost importance that you stay updated and that you're continuously learning. And And shameless plug here, the best and easiest way to do that is to listen to the Practice Playbook, because that's what we're here to help you do. We want you to stay updated, and we want to provide you with that what's happening now insight, so that you can help with your own continuous learning. So continue to stay plugged into the Practice Playbook in order to know what's coming next and see what's coming next. But there are other tools as well. And so make sure that you're connected to those right communities within LinkedIn or Tax Twitter or whatever your source of social media is, or regular media if we're still doing that somewhere. I have a funny story. Remind me to talk about social media in a minute. But it is important to stay updated and continuously learn around these topics. So you want to know how those tools are working, what kind of information they're pulling, how they're pulling that information, and how you can use them to help you and your practice the most effectively. Jay, as we get to the key takeaways, I think it's worth reminding, AI is not going to take your job, but a computer might be right next to you as a coworker in the future. And so making sure that you understand how to work with those tools now before other people are able to work with those tools as effectively gives you a leg up in the ability to stand out amongst your peers. So
yeah, it might not take your job, but it's going to take the job of those that don't understand how to use the AI. So that's the key.
True. Yeah, the people who do know how to use it are going to take the jobs of the people who don't. That's absolutely true. And so, of course, there was a Bloomberg white paper around this. So if you are interested in this topic, please, Jay, put that in the show notes and go take a look at Bloomberg's tools there. You can also use Bloomberg's tax tools. I'm sure they've got some AI integrated in theirs. I would be shocked if they don't. And then, of course, we want you to come back here next week. We'll be here again at 4 Central and 5 Eastern, right here, same time, same channel, to talk to you about whatever it is that's coming up and relevant next. Jay, any parting thoughts from you today as we wrap up here?
I'm just gonna stick with what I said a couple weeks ago. Don't fear the technology. Embrace it, test it, play with it, and just go with it. And trust your gut. If it doesn't look right, throw it out. And if you're not sure, double check it, triple check it, but use the tools. Right. They're there to help you. So run with it. And yeah, that's it. So you said to remind you about social media. What's up?
Well, it's not actually social media, but that will put it in my mind. We actually had an election here over the weekend. And for some city council positions, that kind of thing. But there were also 1 million, that's false. There were 15 propositions that needed to be posted, that needed to be voted on. And one of them, Jay, was there was a law in the city of Frisco, that's where I live, or in Collin County, it was a Frisco related law. There's a law in the city of Frisco that when certain things happened, they needed to be published in the newspaper so that everyone could see them. And so we had to vote as a city to allow the city to publish those things on the webpage instead of in the paper itself. And I think that resolution passed.
Wow.
So here's hoping anyway. But yeah, it's sometimes the world is slow to adopt technology. Is I guess the point of that message, right?
I don't think that web thing is going to work out.
Yeah, man, I'm not sure about it, but I definitely think that if you're out there watching this show, you should definitely explore it. And on top of that, you should explore AI and how it can help facilitate the work that you're doing today.
Yeah, for sure.
So thanks again for spending some time with us this afternoon on the Practice Playbook. I'm Chris. He's Jay. We'll be here again next week. It's been our pleasure to talk to you about AI and tax, and we look forward to talking to you again soon. Thanks for watching, everyone.
See everybody. Bye.